Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it's time for the Q&As, so let's go ahead and get this started. All right, first question. Hey coach, I have a quick question. Should you retract your scapula during deadlifts or not? If I recall, you said keep your shoulders back. Is that enough, or should the scapula be completely retracted, such as when benching things in advance? All right, man, you guys way overthink this stuff sometimes. When we talk about mental cues and things, there's some mental cues to where we can use hyperbole when we discuss them. But in the case of something like a deadlift, if you were to put all your effort into retracting your scapula as hard as possible, it would just mess your whole form up. It's different from the bench. Yes, the bench, you need to have that super tight. On the deadlift, you need to pull them back, but you don't need to be focused on it tremendously. You really don't, because you really need to be focused on pulling the slack out of the bar. You need to be focused on, getting your hips in the correct position, getting everything tight before you break the bar off the floor. And if you're putting all your mental focus into retracting the scapula as hard as possible, you're actually going to neglect these other areas. I mean, I'm not saying you don't want scapula pulled back a bit, because you do, and you want everything locked in tight, but don't over focus on stuff like that at the expense of other things. And so again, as long as you have your shoulders back, as long as you have everything pulled in tight, it's going to be fine. But again, you don't need to be squeezing them together hard like we do on the bench press, because it's a little bit different. It's not necessary to do that. Don't overthink things like this, because what ends up happening, you see people that overthink one mental cue like that and put all their effort into it, and then everything else just goes to shit. So I'm gonna recommend you don't do that. Just get your shoulder blades back. Not that difficult. You need to be worried about tightness through your whole body, and getting that slack out of the bar is the most important thing. All right, next question. Can a recreational lifter omit the flat bench press and use the pause incline bench press to make gains in all the same muscle groups involved? Can they try to do that? Sure. Would I recommend that they do that? No. Not really. And I'm not saying the incline is not a great exercise. I'm not even saying the incline can't be a great primary exercise for your goals. I consider it to be an accessory or assistance movement, depending on what you're doing personally. But you could make it a primary exercise. But I think that you're going to find, contrary to what people tell you, it's not going to be ideal for overall upper body development, chest development. Like I said, you can certainly use it. But I would tell most people they're going to put on more overall size in their upper body by focusing on the bench press, particularly more with a closer grip, narrower grip, and the strict standing press, or just the press, right? Overhead pressing with a full range of motion. You need to remember that works the upper chest tremendously if you come all the way down on it correctly as well. So I think between those two exercises, you're going to get more than everything that you want out of the incline. And again, you start throwing in stuff like a weighted pull up or a weighted chin up with full range of motion. You've got pretty complete upper body stimulation at that point. You say things like the same muscles, but I mean, no, it's not going to give you as much total chest potential as a bench press. Maybe the upper chest to some extent. But if you're not careful, the incline starts turning into a slightly more delt dominant exercise. And again, it's all about how you perform the lift. But in terms of overall potential, I think the flat bench actually has, done correctly, I think it has more potential for overall size. And I'm not saying the incline is not a fantastic exercise, and I'm not saying it doesn't have benefit for those chasing certain physique goals, but I think those same benefits can be gained just by doing a lot of volume on the press along with your bench press. Just my opinion. But you're free to do what you want with it. All right, next question. Do you still stand by the 1x5 deadlift for novices? I want to try and up my deadlift volume. Yeah, that's what I recommend for novices. Novice lifters, first year lifters, don't really want to do a whole bunch of deadlift volume, because if you do, it's going to retract away from the other lifts you need to do. All right, the way I look at the deadlift, because of, again, the stimulation versus the impact on recovery, we're doing deadlift just to shore up any muscles involved with the deadlift early on and to train the motor pattern. It is really almost treated as, in a way, a secondary exercise due to the lower volume. And you're going to get most of your muscle growth from your actual back work, like rows or pull-ups, chin-ups, and your squats are going to handle most of your lower body. The deadlift is there just to improve overall strength and to hit a lot of those muscles over again with a second exercise because it hits so many muscles at once. But as far as novice lifters go, I don't think they should put a lot of volume into the deadlift. I just wouldn't recommend it. Now, you could specialize in deadlift early on, I suppose, as a novice if that was your goal, but that's its own animal. You really need a little more specialized training for that. But what it comes down to is that novice lifters generally don't have the work capacity and neuromuscular efficiency and everything to do multiple heavy sets of deadlifts and actually get anywhere with it. They tend to peter out real fast. And what you need to remember with most people who are doing volume deadlifts, more advanced lifters, we're not going heavy. What you're doing early on as a novice is you're doing one all-out set where you're going pretty heavy for that set. Like when you guys saw me doing 7 to 10 sets of deadlifts in a session, keep in mind I was working with things like triples with weights that were in the range of 70 to 75%. Like they were actually weights I could probably do for 10 reps. So totally different animal when you start volume deadlifting, and the novice is going to get more out of just getting more weight on the bar, which you're only going to be able to do for one peak set. All right, next question. Do you recommend widening the grip on the bench for people who have long arms and a small rib cage for the purpose of a better leverage to make more proper gains? You mean so they can cut the range of motion down? No. Yes, it's hard when you have long arms and a small rib cage to move that weight a long distance. But no, I don't recommend they cut their range of motion down. You can reward yourself with a shorter range of motion when you put some size on. How about you grow your chest and your torso so that you can cut the range of motion down? There you go. That's what I recommend. I recommend you get big. I recommend you eat, you put on size. But here's what you need to remember, that wider grip can be hard on your shoulders. And if you have a small rib cage, your range of motion is deeper. So why do you want to do the variation that's going to be harder on your shoulders, particularly at the bottom? You see what I'm saying? When you personally have a deeper bottom to the lift than other people do to the size of your rib cage. I don't recommend that at all. I recommend you keep it relatively narrow, medium grip, maybe closed grip, but medium grip, and go ahead and just fill yourself out with meat and worry about the wide grip bench for those guys who are going to do it in powerlifting meets who have thick rib cages and barrel chests. That's what I recommend. Or yourself when you put some size on if you want to go compete in powerlifting. But I'm going to say the guys with a smaller rib cage might want to just consider the medium grip for life so that they don't hurt themselves even if they go into powerlifting and they need to just accept they're not going to be a world record holder, right? Oh no, the bench is not going to be your specialty. That's fine. Deadlift you'll probably be a lot better at. All right, next question. Hey Jason, I train 4 times a week, upper lower concurrent, used to train full body 3 times a week, but simply prefer upper lower. And I'm thinking of adding GPP and some light cardio to my off days. Do you think it can interfere with your recovery if I do it on all off days, meaning no full complete off days? Should I do it 3 times a week during all off days, or 2 times a week so that I have 1 full complete day off from everything for recovery purposes? Can it interfere with recovery? Yeah, absolutely. Every new thing that you add to your training can interfere. And the reason people go to upper lower is because they want to do more training workload in a week and they can't cram it into full body easily. That's the only reason you go to upper lower. And so in your case, you're running an upper lower concurrent training, which is a very fine balance you strike with that. So what you need to do is you need to approach adding conditioning work in on your off days very cautiously and very slowly. And I'm not saying you can't eventually build to more. I'm not saying you can't build to where you could do conditioning work up to 6 days a week. But what I am saying is that you need to not be looking at what's the most I can add in right now. That is how you are going to completely stall and regress in your training. Coming up with that's teenage thoughts. That's thinking like a 15-year-old. What's the most GPP I could throw in right now? Right? Instead, you need to be thinking of, okay, I need to start doing more conditioning. How about I add it in 1 day? 1 day and then see how I recover. Preferably, like let's say you do Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Maybe add it on Saturday. All right? Add it on Saturday so that you have a full day off before your next training session after your GPP. Then you can start slowly working more in. I would do that for several weeks. Start slowly building that conditioning and GPP work. Add it in slow. 1 day to where you know you're going to have a full day off completely afterwards before you have to lift again. Then go through and add a second day and assess it and adapt to it each time. You're probably going to need to spend several weeks doing whatever you add in before you increase it each time. Because again, you need to make sure that you're not interfering with your recovery, that you build your work capacity, and even adding 1 day of it to start, you will start to see conditioning benefits. But like with everything else, there's a progression that needs to be followed with this so that you don't interfere with your overall training adaptation. And so you need to add stuff like this in very, very slowly. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.